Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? I'm in the car. I'm out and about. Haven't made a video in the car in a long time, but I was out and about. I wasn't sure if I'm going to have any time later on today, and I wanted to answer some questions. And so, second video response to Sean O'Farrell, who's been asking me some pretty decent questions. These were follow-up questions on my video response to his last question, where he was asking about player skill versus character skill. Player-facing mechanics versus character-facing mechanics. So he asked me these two follow-up questions, which I'll try to lump together in this video because I find them both pretty interesting. First one is, when you're using your kind of self-limitation role-play for player-facing challenges, what do you do if your character is better than you are? Well, truth of the matter is you don't. That's one of the problems with player-facing mechanics, and I'm not against them. But this is one of the places where they start to fall down, is if you're supposed to solve some sort of logic puzzle or whatever, or you find yourself in that situation, or it's just, investigation. Whatever it happens to be, you're playing an investigator. And say this guy is, the pinnacle of all investigators. You put all your points into, like, investigation, or he's just very intelligent, whatever it happens to be. And he exceeds your ability. I mean, we play characters like this all the time, don't we? It's part of role playing. It's playing the guy that's stronger, faster, smarter, cooler than just plain old Ivan. And what happens at some point is your character's better than you are, and if all you're doing is using player skill, you can't really represent it because you're just not that good. So it's over time I've realized that I prefer a game that has some kind of mechanics that at least help me out, where the game master is signaled that my character would be able to figure something out, better than I would. Whatever it happens to be, more, whatever it is, more charismatic, more diplomatic, all that sort of stuff. And, either there's some kind of narration of how that happens, or maybe there's a die roll. It doesn't really matter, it depends on the game and the system. But that is one of those problems. Good question. The second one is, what if a game had no built-in mechanism to define abilities like reason, logic, social skill? How much would it change your play style if you played in a D&D or clone game which didn't have a charisma score? So let's talk about just any kind of game that, say, it just did not have scores to represent, how charismatic you were, how diplomatic you were, how intelligent you were, all that sort of stuff. How would you role play? How much would it change my particular play style? And the question befuddles me a lot less than it would have, some years ago. And part of the deal is, at least for me, because this is a very personal answer, is that, as I role play a character, part of what happens is that, I come up with a concept. I come up with, well, who is this guy? What are they all about? What are they good at? What are they not so good at? What's their shtick? What's their gig? What kind of person is this? What's their archetype? And I become informed by that of any kind of missing skills or attributes. And we can think of all the way back, to the D&D tropes, and you play the wizard. Well, the wizard is probably the smart guy that has all these other, lore and knowledge of herbs and all this other kind of stuff. There's nothing in the rules, if you look at BXD&D, to back that up. But that's the archetype. He's playing that guy, just like you're playing the fighter. And say you play a fighter, and he's supposed to know all these things like how to fix his armor and whatnot. That's stuff that we assume. So you can take that a step further. And so you're playing the noble, you're playing the investigator, you're playing the diplomat. And even though the game doesn't have particular stats or skills or numerical figures, we can role play that person in that particular manner. So we do that all the time about other little things. So if I was playing in a game that had a system where it just simply didn't have a charisma stat, it would be figuring out who my character was, discussing it with the group, not making him ridiculously overpowered, or making it a parody, unless that's kind of the vibe we were going for. And then that's kind of how I believe I would handle something like that. I'm just looking at a game right now, getting ready to play play by email, or maybe play by Facebook post, or whatever. However we're going to end up doing. And it's a game called Masks, and it is a PBTA game. But part of the thing about that particular game, I just thought about this right now as making the video, is there aren't any real stats for something like charisma or strength or whatever. You play, archetypes. The playbooks in this game is actually pretty cool. It's very, very campy, but it makes me smile looking at the depiction of these young superheroes and what have you, and all the teen angst. Teen angst it doesn't do it for me. Ain't that big of a deal. But superhero teen angst, when you can blow things up, that's pretty cool. But the game lacks like the kind of stats that you would normally think of. But you can come up with a character concept. And there's nothing wrong with that character being particularly intelligent, or charismatic, or diplomatic, or just really fast on their feet, whatever it happens to be, based on your concept of the character. So that's my long-winded answer of saying all the time, or we do that all the time in role-playing games. We fill in those missing gaps. And so if a game had a missing gap in terms of charisma, or diplomacy, or intelligence, I think we'd be able to at least somebody like me, I would be able to fill in those gaps and role-play accordingly and have fun. So, yeah, that's my answer for today. Have a good one, kids.